Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. I wanted to be here today, and I appreciate the invitation because first and foremost, I wanted to extend my appreciation to all of you. I just had the opportunity to do that in the PAC committee, but your leadership with the business community and everything that you do, your representatives in Sacramento with Dave and Jamie, who work closely with all of us, if it wasn't for the leadership with this group, combined with a few of the other business associations and companies, the business community in California would have even more challenges in front of it than what we have today. Now, the thing we're going to talk about a little bit is how to be able to see where California is changing, the challenges that it creates, and how we meet those challenges. But from where we have been to where we are today, we would not have been as successful as we have been, stopping a 2/3 supermajority in the legislature up until last November, killing, obviously, a lot of the tax bills and labor bills that have been killed because of your efforts, the chamber and others. So the teamwork has been critical, but you have made the decision to engage, fight for what you believe in, and to help move California forward. We appreciate that. In addition, the bottom line is, I guess President Obama said it at one point. Didn't he say you build it, or was he talking about something else? But you are the backbone of California's economy with our infrastructure. The California Business Roundtable considers infrastructure to be one of our biggest issues for what has to happen for the future of California's economy. You do build it. We're grateful for your expertise in making that happen, and we're partners with you in trying to get, obviously, the state on the right track in this next phase from a funding perspective, but also from the labor law and all the other issues we deal with from the business side to be able to move California's infrastructure forward and ultimately California's economy. So thank you for what you do and how you do it. So that's what's kept me as a Californian, frankly. It's just incredible, the resources that we have. So quickly, I want to give you an overview of what happened in the election. Anybody think we had a bad election the last cycle, or think it was a good election, or any comments? And stop me at any point if you have a quick question. I want to make sure we get that out right up front. Okay, so quickly, what happened in the election in November? I also chair an independent expenditure committee that works on electing business-friendly Democrats and also trying to keep, stop a 2/3 supermajority. With your help, we've been very successful. We elected every single business-friendly Democrat in the elections that we engaged in this year. We were very successful on that side. We were not as successful on stopping a 2/3 supermajority. So why? First off, let's talk about the numbers. Your numbers, people, as well. What's happening in California? So 18 million registered voters. The Democrats have about 44% of that. But the trend lines for Republicans are not good. They're 29% of that 18 million, and they're still declining. The decline to states, the non-affiliated voters are increasing, and if the Republicans don't start to change public opinion, within 2016, we see those lines intersecting. There'll be more decline to state voters than Republican voters. And that's going to create even bigger challenges for all of us with the business community. So then you look at where are the subgroups in California and how they're voting and the makeup of the overall electorate. So where things stand right now, the Democrats in this past election made up 45% of the vote. The Republicans made up 31% of the vote. If you go back to 2000, you look at, there was only a 6-point difference between the Republicans and Democrats. But we see a new trend that's emerged, and it started in 2008, where we now have a much bigger gap between the Republicans and the Democrats and what they make up of the actual turnout of the electorate. And as a result, we are seeing the results that we are seeing. It's not obviously any kind of aberration. Democrats won every statewide race, in 2010 because of this gap. And what's interesting is, look at where the decline to states are coming. They're growing. They could actually surpass Republicans as well before the end of this decade if the Republicans don't start to make some changes. But this gap right here encapsulates the challenges and the results of what we're dealing with in the elections, both from 8, 10, and 12, and now moving forward. And we've been successful in the face of some of this, but this year it hit us hard after redistricting and just the overall presidential race. So then you look at the subgroups. Women have been consistently turning out at about 54% of the electorate, men at 46%, but the real story here is look at the Latino vote. I think all of you know it, you hear it, you see it, but it's happening. And you start back in 2000 at 10%, and now it's at 19%, and it's only going to grow. Women are consistently outperforming male voters now. In fact, for the Democrats, 1 million more women voted than men in the Democrat Party in this election. 1 million more. And that directly played into what happened with the outcome of some of the results we're going to take a look at. So you have now Latinos at almost 20% of the electorate, and it's only going to get bigger. If you look at where we are, overall, back in, again, 1970, you look at where essentially the white population or Caucasian population was in California, and now look at where we are in 2010. That's right off the census data. So we did not believe that we were going to see this until 2025, at the earliest. There's talk even 2040. Here it is in 2010. And if you don't think it's going to change even more rapidly from now, then you're mistaken, because this is actually just the start of some of the changes that are coming. Look at this. For the Latino population, which is now what we are looking at for how we deal with elections in California in the future, particularly for the business community, connecting on values, trying to show Latino voters of where the pro-business candidates are for the future of their kids. If their kids don't have a job in the future, obviously they have no future. And we have to look at the education component as it translates then into the workforce component, but also talk about how they have to support candidates who are willing to change that. I'm going to give you an example in 1 second. But look at the California Latino population now. 14 million, over 10 million age 18 plus. But I don't know how many of you have seen this, but California Latino voters now are 4 million. But the 18 plus population is 10 million. So where's the growth going to be? That growth is happening. They are organized, and they are going out to get every one of those 10 million. And then if you look at the next one for their high school students, well over 50% of the high school students in California public schools, 10,000 of them in their high schools, are Latino. So you have 15,000 Latinos who are turning 18 now every month in California. So these are, the changes that are happening that we're looking at to how to be able to see how we connect our messaging to help California's business community. This is not a bad thing. I mean, this is the reality. So it's how we approach this that we understand will affect every one of us in this room, all of California's future. And we believe that we can obviously get there, but for this past election, and let me show you where we are, we had an impact also of the youth. You might have heard a lot of talk about university students, Proposition 30. We'll talk about that in a second. But the Republicans are having a tough time with the youth vote as well. So if you look at the turnout in this past election, of the 18 to 29-year-olds, 44% of them were Democrats and only 22% Republicans. And most importantly, you look at there were more DTS 18 to 29-year-olds who voted than Republican. So again, the whole balance is shifting. So you look ahead to the presidential race. Obviously, 2008, Obama got 61% and McCain got 37%. Obama this time got 60%, and even though there were less voters overall, Romney got 37%. So it seems like there's a 37% base in there that is kind of, anti-tax and more pro-business. But there's this whole gap in there that's up for grabs that we now have to adapt what we're going to be doing to be able to try and affect that. In in the exit polls, just look at this, 72% of the Latinos voted for Obama, 71% of the 18 to 29-year-olds for Obama, 64% of the females for Obama. So there you go. There's the future. Now let me flip to Prop 30 real quick. Exit polls. 53% of Latinos, 76% of the Democrats, 63% of the youth vote, and 53% of the female vote. So when you have a million more Democrat females voting, you can see that actually was the female vote that helped tip the balance for Proposition 30. That's where it came from. There's no questions about that now. And you're the first one seeing this. This data all just came in. We just got it from the state and the counties. And this is, you're literally one of the first times that we're presenting the hard numbers. This is directly off the voter file of who voted. But interestingly, for Prop 30, if you look at the decline to states, they lost. Prop 30 lost among the decline to states. And frankly, you saw, if you look at the Republican vote, 24% voted for Prop 30. That's much higher than what was expected because we believe, if you look from a Republican mom perspective, you know, public schools, they are concerned about their schools. So they went for the funding side of that. So, you know, where are we headed? The reason I wanted to show a couple of these slides is because now we're in a completely new environment in Sacramento. 2/3 supermajority in both houses because of the way these demographics and this vote played out throughout all the legislative races. So what we are facing is now great uncertainty, but what we are facing is, and make no mistake about this, the governor is the only backdrop for the business community right now that we have. Unless we're willing to try and referend a specific law, the governor is the only backstop. And the biggest concern from a roundtable perspective, the business community perspective, it's not the 2/3 bills that necessarily will hurt us and get through. It's the majority vote bills, because even our business-friendly Democrats, there's not enough of them to stop majority vote bills. They're going to help us stop some bad 2/3 vote bills, hopefully split roll being one of them, and split roll is one of the big ones coming. But it's the majority vote bills that scare us to death because they can't stop those. We don't have enough of the business-friendly Democrats to do that. So that leaves the governor in this equation as the backstop. That's it. So we are in very interesting times in our relationships with the governor, his perspective on the issues, how we communicate into them, how they create balance. Look at the budget itself. This year, right now, they're at $3 to $5 billion surplus. Why? Because of the federal tax conformity of what happened last year. A lot of people obviously changed their fiscal strategies at home, and now the state has a surplus. What they do with that surplus is going to be absolutely critical because now all the labor unions are going after that money. They want to spend it on programs. They want to spend it on pensions. They want to spend it on salary increases. They want to hire more public employees. And that creates, obviously, more built-in long-term pressure. The economy still is not strong enough from all of our research that we can sustain that kind of spending. So if the governor doesn't hold the line this year and keep that in a surplus, because I guarantee you next year there will be no surplus. That puts us, if they don't do that, it puts us right back in a fiscal deficit situation next year, and we start that whole thing all over again. So that's, again, one of the major issues facing us collectively to try and get the governor to balance out these budgets as we move forward. Again, split roll, the Democrats believe, the labor unions believe that this is the new paradigm shift in California. This reflects their new majority governing coalition, that they will be able to go to the ballot, they will be able to turn these folks out, and they will be able to pass anything that they put on the ballot, starting with split roll. So the pressure on business taxes is coming. They'll take it to the ballot, and they think they know who these folks are, and they'll go get them to vote for them every time. That's the challenge in front of us as well, to be able to beat that back. So we're gearing up for that challenge. There's a tremendous amount of, obviously, work that's already been done since the election to prepare for this new environment. But again, it's all a matter of teamwork for all of us, because if we don't stand together to be able to push these things back, they will split us apart, they'll pick us off, and then we obviously are going to fail for what we have to do for the business community as a whole. So I just want to add one more thing, and then if there's any questions, otherwise get you onto your business. So these are trends, these are facts, this is hard data. But what does it mean for the future? So you say, well, Republicans are never going to win again, or a business-friendly candidate will never win again, or any of the other obviously pessimistic viewpoints that might come with the past election. I will leave you with this thought. California is a candidate-driven state. California has always been a candidate-driven state. And it's who the candidate is and the message that they have that ultimately determines who wins and loses. Meg Whitman was tied with Jerry Brown going into September until the Maid issue broke. Okay? They were exactly tied. She was getting almost 40% of Latino vote in September, mid-September, until that issue broke. After that, it was over. But they were tied. So who the Republicans put forth as candidates in these districts now is absolutely critical. And if they don't reflect the changing demographics for California with a modernized message for where California needs to go, then they're going to continue to lose. But if they do that, they can win. There is, within these groups, the opportunity to be able to move them with the right message and the right candidates. So it's up to them, but that's what we have to help look out for in the future, because it obviously impacts us. But we also have at the same time elect more business-friendly Democrats, so we build that group in the middle so that we can stop any of the bad stuff and give even more backstop other than the governor. So with that, CEQA reform, we're on the offensive. That's our highest priority. We have movement in that. We're part of helping with you to drive the coalition. We've started this thing since last July. It's going to be a day-by-day process because we're fighting the environmentalists and the building trades on labor to try and get modernization of CEQA. But you know what needs to get done, and we are fighting like hell to get it done. So that is one of our big offensive strategies for this year for the business community. And I hope you see some of the things that's happening out there, because that is one of our #1 priorities. So with that, if we have time, any questions? Otherwise, I will get out of the way. Thank you for everything you do, and thank you for allowing me to be here.